Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com, and this is episode 34 of Photo Critiques. And in Photo Critiques, people send me in some of their best images, and I critique each shot with suggestions on how they could improve it. And today, I'm pleased to critique the work of Billie Winkle, and Billie sent me in some really nice shots. And let's get started already. This is probably one of my favorites. Very, very cute picture. Great pose, and I mentioned in previous critiques that you could zoom in on the face of a subject. You could cut off the head, the top of the head's okay. You could either just come just below the chin or just above the chin, and Billie did a great job here. The other thing she did really well, it's very nicely focused. The eyes are very well in focused. Always, I've mentioned many times in these critiques, always focus on the eyes of if it's a person, if it's an insect, if it's a human, or an animal. Always make sure the eyes are in perfect focus. That's the most important thing. In this case, the only thing that I think is a problem is the light. We have a strong side light coming in. Side light is okay usually for lighting a man, especially men with a rugged face or a beard or facial scars or something. Rugged face men, it comes out really good with side lighting. Women and children generally, you want the lighting flatter. Now in this case, we probably had a window over here, coming across in this little girl's face. If you couldn't spin her and shoot so the light was flat, on her face, you could get a reflector. Now you don't have to buy, a real expensive reflector, from a, photography store or anything like that. You could go to like Office Depot or Office Max and get just a piece of poster board, white poster board, and all you have to do is reflect some light back onto this side of her face, and it would be a much more pleasing shot because it would flatten the light out a little bit, and it'd add a nice amount of fill light. The other thing is you always want the eyes as bright as possible, and in post you often could do that. In this case you can't because the shade on this side is so dark. What you could do is you want to brighten up the iris just a little bit. So you would get a brush in Lightroom, you'd have exposure up, all the other ones would be right in the middle, and you just want to come like something like this and brighten that up. Now see, this side it doesn't do as much because it's so dark over there. So let's see that's without it and that's with it. You might be able to get it up a little more. If you go up too high, you're creating an alien. You don't want anything like that. So you just want them up a little bit. Even that might be a little too high, but I kind of overdo it a little bit in these videos so you could see the effect. So this side here, though, is still a little dark. You could try, get a new brush and have exposure up, and let's make our brush bigger by hitting the right bracket key, or you could, if you have a mouse, you could spin the scroll wheel, and you could try to lighten this up. Now it's hard to do because it is so dark. You can't make it so light that it's lighter than the rest of the side of the face. It won't look natural. But you could do it a little bit, and that might improve it. See, there's a little bit. It's not bad at all. But that's my suggestions. Is you got to always be aware of the light, especially with portraits. Try to position the subject, the model, in a way that the light is most flattering. On women, flat light is better, so straight on their face. Billie could have used fill flash possibly on this. If she had a pop-up flash, she could have set it at like 25% power and just shot some light in here, and it still would have looked like side lighting, but it would have filled in this side very nicely. So that's another alternative to the either repositioning the little girl or using poster board to bounce some light back onto the dark side of her face, or, as I mentioned, fill flash. This shot here, it's more of a snapshot of a guy taking a snapshot. It's very colorful, of course. You get some stray people over here. He's cut off. It's not nothing that I think is it's not something I could say to improve or to change, except that work the scene. You could have probably got a better shot if you wanted to take a picture of this gentleman taking a picture. You probably could have, a lot of times you don't have a real strong subject. You want, as I mentioned before, you try to utilize a leading line or framing. I don't know if there was a building there and you could have shot and had a window. You were shooting out a window, let's say, of a guy shooting a plant. Something, so the window frame was here and you had window panes. Uh, I'm just making stuff up because obviously I don't think there was a building here where she could have stood in a window, shot out, or stood in the building and shot out a window. But I'm trying to give you what I'm thinking is you need something to make the shot more interesting. So you want, a leading line, framing, something along those lines, or something unusual coming into the shot. In this case, there's really nothing unusual. You just got some stray people over here. This shot too, that light's a little harsh. We got some weird shadows down here. And this is a nice leading line. But I mentioned many, many times, it doesn't really resolve on anything. It just kind of goes off into the distance. And, there's nothing there. But can you imagine if there was, something there, like maybe a little child walking, that same little girl maybe walking with their dad holding hands, something interesting. And of course you don't want them looking at the camera, so you might want them walking away or walking and they're looking at each other or something like that. Or something unusual. I always say a three-legged dog would be really cool right there. Something odd would always cool. Of course, that's not always available, so you do the best you can. This is a nice panorama. It's a little bright. Up here is blown out. You generally, I mentioned in critiques before, you don't want anything blown out. It's okay to have stuff so dark it's ink black. A little bit, not a lot, but you don't want anything blown out unless there's a sun right there, the sunset. You could have right where the sun is blown out. And the way to check if it's blown out is on the histogram in Lightroom. Just open it and you have these two triangles. The triangle on the right, just hover over it and you can see over here it turned red, that it's blown out. You can see the histogram's way to the right. That means there's a lot of bright parts in the shot. There's nothing, there is a little bit. If you go on this left triangle, any part that's ink black with no detail will turn blue. And you can see this wave here, and these, inside of this, building, I guess. I want to call it a pier. It's a pier, but that's a building there. You can see it's got that, blue in there. But that's okay. That's okay. That's not a lot. You could get away with a lot more that's ink black than you can that's white. Now, a way to minimize this, if you can't go back there and reshoot this or anything, is you could add a vignette. And if you add a vignette, it'll help draw the user's gaze towards the center. And there really isn't a lot left in the shot. The main interest, we have an interesting sky, a little bit blown out like I mentioned, but you have this this building and this pier, which is the interesting part. So I got a really heavy vignette on there, but it helps draw your attention towards the center. Now that's without the vignette, and that's with the vignette. So that's my point, is you try to get the your job as a photographer is you want to convey something to someone, and you want to utilize all these different tools, from leading lines when you're taking the shot, or framing when you're taking the shot, or selective color when you're taking the shot, or complementary colors when you're taking a shot, or in post, vignettes, creative cropping, so you get the user to look where you want them to look. And in this case, there's not much to look at over here that's interesting. Not much to look at over there. We want them to look in here. So that vignette helps. This another very tight shot, and as I mentioned, it's okay to crop out part of the head, just crop up above the chin too, so it's balanced. The thing with this shot, it's kind of a small shot too, so I can't make it too big, is it's a little soft. You need the eyes as sharp as possible, so you want to focus on those eyes. Also, the lighting, is nice and flat, so that is good. But especially, with gorillas, they have this high, deep brow, so you have a lot of shadow down on here. And if you could use a flash, if you're close enough, if to get the flash to hit the animal, that would help fill that in. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's a great expression though with the lips. But if it was just focused a little tighter, it would improve the shot a lot. Let me zoom out now because I zoomed in on that one. Okay, this very colorful bird. Let's see if there's any metadata on here. Yeah, this is f of 5.6, which is nice because it blurred out the background nicely, so it's not as distracting, and it helps bring the bird to stand out, doesn't fall into the background. ISO 400, try to use, used a very fast shutter speed. You could have used ISO 100. Always use the lowest ISO possible on your camera. If you're finding your very dark area and you can't hand hold, you got it at one. You know for a fact that if you go slower than 1/30th of a second, you'll get camera shake when you hand hold it, and you have your aperture wide open already. Well, then turn the ISO up. That's the only time I'd like to see you turn ISO up, when you're taking shots like this. So two problems I have with the shot is part of the bird's cut off. You want to get the entire bird in the shot. You have a real nice diagonal going here, and the bird's kind of leaning that way too, but it's cut off down here. So you really would have wanted this whole bird in the shot. The other is the lighting. It's very harsh, very casting these shadows down here. Again, you'd want the light flatter. If you can't get it with a reflector or with the sun itself being in the right spot, the bird cooperating and being in the right spot, so you could get a nice light with flat on the bird. If you could use fill flash, use fill flash to fill in these shadows. Now conversely, this shot, it's nice soft light. It's relatively flat on this the tiger, and it's very well in focus. The eye is very sharp. F of 5.6, again, ISO 800, 1/30th of a second. Now that's a good example. Billie might not have had a tripod, or it wasn't practical to use a tripod, so she had to hand hold the shot. She probably knew you can't go much slower than 1/30th of a second without getting any camera shake. And she's probably it's F of 3.5 to 5.6. So even if she went to F of 3.5, she would have been at 1/40th of a second. What's the big, it's no big deal. So to get the exposure, she had to boost ISO. You have to boost ISO, so she had no choice. A very nice shot. I like the fact that she left space in the way the animal's looking. That's what you always want to do, have more space in the animal's looking. I'm not sure I care for the crop too much. I don't know what was over here. It's a tight crop, but there's a little bit too much above here. If you're going to crop, I don't know if this was cropped. I got a feeling it was, because it was 55 millimeters. If you're going to crop, I'd say crop it a little more. Let's get all the whiskers in the shot though. All right, something I think like that would be a stronger image. There's just a little bit too much space up above here, and it was bright. Here, let me undo that, not undo it, just so I could show you. See, it's kind of bright up there, and I think when it's brought down, you eliminate some of that brightness, and you're got the subject filling the frame better. So I think that's a stronger image. You probably bring it down a little bit more too, because I did cut off a little bit of the whisker. You'd like the whisker to be in the entire shot. So that's it on Billie shots. She's a real nice variety of work. She's very talented, as you could see. A couple things, just be careful of the focus, and I think mainly Billie is if she just is more aware of the light, where the light is falling on her subject. She wants to stay away from harsh shadows in most instances. The only time you really want a harsh shadow is maybe a certain animals where you want to show maybe a scale pattern. You want a little side light because that helps bring out the texture of the surface a little better. As I mentioned before, some men that might have a rugged face, like you picture a cowboy, with the cowboy hat. They're out in the weather all the time, and their face is a little weathered. Side lighting brings out all the little nuances of their face. Men with beards generally, a little bit of a side light is nice, but you don't want to overdo it so it casts real dark shadows on the other side. You still need something to fill that other side in. So you either need a reflector, and don't hesitate to just get a piece of white poster board. It will work just as good as those expensive reflectors. And or fill flash, and experiment with fill flash and learn how your camera, hopefully your camera could do, instead of shooting out 100% power, you could do 1/8 of a power, something like that. And you could experiment with fill flash and get to learn how it works. And then you'll know when you're in a given situation how much power to use to fill in the shadows. And as I mentioned, I really appreciate Billie sending me in her photography. And if you guys want to send me in some work, I'm running like at least 3 weeks. You'd send it to critiques@anthonymorganti.com. Send me 3 to 10 images. The bigger the better. If your email client can't handle it, you could put them on Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever Microsoft's called nowadays. Any of those drives, and give me the link, make it public and give me the link, and I'll download it. I don't mind. And give me a good 3 weeks to do it, and I'll email you when it's done. And I appreciate everyone watching. And if you haven't already, if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it. So I'll talk to you guys soon.